Trump just reignited a trade war with Canada, slapping heavy tariffs on aluminum, steel, and electric vehicles. But Canada isn't backing down. They're striking back hard with a move that could crush Tesla's sales and shake up the entire EV market. If you own a Tesla, plan to buy one, or care about where your car is made. This could change everything. The fight for control over the EV market has just begun. What's happening? In a stunning escalation of economic tensions, Canada has retaliated against the United States by imposing a 100% tariff on Tesla vehicles. This move comes in direct response to President Donald Trump's 25% tariffs on Canadian aluminum, steel, and other key imports, a decision that threatens the delicate trade balance between the two countries. For decades, Canada and the United States have been deeply connected through manufacturing, trade, and cross-border supply chains. But with Trump's renewed push for economic nationalism, that relationship is now on the verge of collapse. The 100% tariff on Tesla is a calculated strike, designed not just to retaliate, but to send a powerful message. By doubling the price of Tesla vehicles overnight, Canada is putting direct pressure on both the White House and one of Trump's closest allies, Elon Musk. This move has major implications, not just for Tesla, but for the broader electric vehicle market and international trade dynamics. Consumers in Canada who were looking to purchase a Tesla will now be forced to reconsider, and Tesla's business model, which depends on international demand, is now at serious risk. This is not just about tariffs, it is about economic survival. Trump's aggressive policies have forced Canada into a defensive stance, and this 100% tariff on Tesla vehicles is just the beginning. The question now is whether this will force the United States to reconsider its position or escalate the trade war even further. As Canada fights back with tariffs, the real question is, what is Trump's ultimate goal? Trump's trade crackdown. For years, Donald Trump has pushed an America First trade policy, arguing that tariffs protect U.S. jobs and bring manufacturing back to the United States. His administration's latest decision, a 25% tariff on Canadian aluminum and steel, is part of a broader economic strategy aimed at reshaping global trade in America's favor. By making foreign imports more expensive, Trump hopes to force companies to relocate their production facilities to the United States, reducing the country's reliance on foreign-made goods. However, this strategy comes with significant risks. The tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel directly impact automakers, construction companies, and other industries that rely on these materials. Instead of protecting American workers, the higher costs could lead to job losses and increased consumer prices. In addition, Trump's actions undermine the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, the trade deal that replaced NAFTA, which was meant to ensure fair economic cooperation between the three nations. Now Canada and Mexico find themselves in Trump's crosshairs, despite the agreement being in place. Beyond economics, Trump's tariff policies are also about political leverage. With the 2028 election cycle already taking shape, Trump is positioning himself as the only leader willing to stand up against foreign competition. By targeting key industries, he is appealing to his voter base, reinforcing his promise to bring jobs back to the United States. However, this approach could backfire, as businesses and even some lawmakers begin to question whether these tariffs are actually helping or hurting the American economy. As Trump presses forward with his tariffs, the impact on the auto industry, and particularly Tesla, is becoming more severe. The auto industry's nightmare. The North American auto industry depends on a seamless supply chain, with parts moving between Canada, Mexico, and the United States multiple times before a final vehicle is assembled. Trump's tariffs, combined with Canada's retaliation, threaten to disrupt this delicate balance. For Tesla, the 100% tariff is a major financial blow. The company is heavily reliant on Canadian and Mexican suppliers for components such as aluminum, batteries, and electronics. By doubling the price of Tesla vehicles in Canada, the government is essentially pushing Tesla out of the Canadian market. This could result in a drastic decline in sales, canceled orders, and production slowdowns. Other automakers will not be spared either. Companies such as General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis depend on North American trade for their manufacturing processes. The ripple effects of these tariffs will be felt across the industry, with higher production costs leading to increased vehicle prices, job losses, and a potential downturn in consumer demand. Elon Musk, once seen as a disruptor in the auto industry, now finds himself in the middle of his biggest trade war yet. Despite his close ties to Trump, Canada has singled out Tesla for retaliation, making Musk a direct target of this economic economic battle. Tesla now faces tough decisions. Should it absorb the costs, pass them on to consumers, or try to negotiate a political resolution? None of these options are ideal, and with no sign of Trump backing down, the situation is growing more complicated by the day. As Tesla scrambles to find solutions, Canada's strategy becomes clearer. This is not just retaliation, but a carefully planned attack on Trump's strongest allies. Canada's power move. The decision to target Tesla specifically rather than other U.S. industries is not random. Canada could have placed tariffs on American agriculture, pharmaceuticals, or other manufacturing sectors, but instead it chose Tesla. The reason is simple. Tesla is vulnerable. Unlike traditional automakers, Tesla's business model depends on global supply chains and international consumer demand. Canada's strategy is twofold. First, it forces Tesla consumers to consider Canadian-made electric vehicles instead, boosting the country's own EV market. Second, it places pressure on Musk and other U.S. automakers to lobby against Trump's aggressive tariff policies. If Tesla and other automakers begin losing money, they may push back against Trump, arguing that his policies are doing more harm than good. The consequences of Canada's move are already being felt. Tesla buyers are frustrated, dealerships are struggling to adjust, and the industry is facing massive uncertainty. Other automakers such as Ford and Volkswagen, which produce Canadian-made EVs, may see an opportunity to take Tesla's market share in Canada. But with tensions rising, it remains to be seen whether Tesla will find a way to bypass these tariffs or if the company will suffer long-term consequences. But while Musk fights to save Tesla from financial disaster, everyday consumers are facing a more immediate problem. How will this trade war impact the cost of cars? The consumer shockwave. For Tesla buyers in Canada, the 100% tariff is nothing short of a nightmare. Overnight, the price of every Tesla model has effectively doubled. A Tesla Model Y, which previously cost around $56,000 in Canada, could now exceed $110,000, making it completely unaffordable for the average consumer. This immediate price shock is causing panic in the market. Many potential Tesla buyers are rushing to purchase vehicles before the tariffs fully take effect, while others are canceling their orders altogether. Car dealerships are struggling to adjust, with some even refusing to sell Teslas until they receive clarity on pricing and trade policies. However, not all automakers are suffering. Canada's domestic electric vehicle industry stands to benefit from these tariffs. Canadian-based companies such as Lion Electric and Electromechanica may see a surge in demand as consumers look for more affordable alternatives to Tesla. Additionally, American automakers like Ford and General Motors, which have Canadian production plants, could take advantage of the situation by increasing their local output and dominating the Canadian EV market. The ripple effect does not stop at Tesla. Used car prices are already rising as more consumers look for pre-owned EVs instead of paying inflated prices for new ones. Additionally, consumer financing options are becoming more expensive as banks and lenders factor in the uncertainty of future tariffs when approving auto loans. Meanwhile, other automakers are carefully assessing the market shift. Companies like Hyundai, Volkswagen, and BMW, which import EVs into Canada, could suffer similar consequences if Canada expands its tariffs beyond Tesla. However, some companies may seize the opportunity to produce more vehicles in Canada, sidestepping the trade war altogether. As Canadian consumers face skyrocketing car prices, the big question remains: will Mexico join Canada in retaliating against Trump's tariffs? Mexico's next move. While Canada has taken an aggressive stance against Trump's tariffs, Mexico has remained relatively silent for now. However, this silence may not last much longer. With its massive auto industry deeply connected to the U.S. economy, Mexico has the power to inflict significant damage if it decides to fight back. Mexico's auto industry is a major player in North America, supplying millions of vehicles and auto parts to the U.S. each year. Trump's 25% tariffs on Mexican imports have already caused economic turmoil, with automakers warning that the tariffs will increase vehicle costs and disrupt supply chains. If Mexico retaliates by imposing tariffs on U.S. exports, it could cripple American car manufacturers, forcing them to restructure their operations. The biggest concern for Tesla is that Mexico plays a crucial role in its supply chain. Tesla relies on Mexican factories for critical components, including batteries, electronics, and auto parts. If Mexico joins Canada in targeting Tesla, it could further escalate costs, making Tesla's North American operations even more unstable. The possibility of a Canada-Mexico trade alliance is growing, Both countries have been frustrated with Trump's economic policies, and by working together, they could apply more pressure on the U.S. government to reverse the tariffs. If Mexico officially announces its own tariffs, it would mark a major escalation in the trade war, with devastating consequences for the U.S. auto industry. As tensions rise, major U.S. automakers are starting to push back against Trump's trade war. America's business leaders versus Trump. The American auto industry is on edge, with rising costs, supply chain disruptions, and consumer backlash. Automakers like Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis are openly resisting Trump's tariff-heavy economic policies. These companies have billions of dollars at stake, and they know that tariffs will reduce demand, increase production costs, and force layoffs. Ford and GM executives have already warned that vehicle prices could increase by several $1,000s, making it harder for middle-class Americans to afford new cars. Lobbyists and trade groups are working behind the scenes to convince lawmakers to intervene. The American Automotive Policy Council, representing the biggest U.S. car manufacturers, has launched a multi-million-dollar campaign aimed at pressuring the White House to ease trade restrictions. The real question is, will Trump listen? Despite the backlash from business leaders, Trump has remained firm on his tariff policies, arguing that they will force companies to bring jobs back to America. However, if enough pressure builds from the auto industry and consumer advocates, the White House may be forced to reconsider. The battle between Trump, Tesla, and North America's auto industry is just beginning, but the consequences will shape the future of global trade. Tesla's future in Canada. A market collapse? Tesla has long been a leader in the electric vehicle industry, but Canada's 100% tariff threatens its position in one of North America's most important markets. This move is not just about Tesla. It is a warning to the United States that Canada will retaliate aggressively if targeted by tariffs. But what does this mean for Tesla's future in Canada? Tesla's sales and stock value have already taken a hit. With the cost of a Tesla vehicle effectively doubling overnight due to the tariffs, Canadian consumers are reconsidering their options. While Tesla has long enjoyed strong demand in Canada, the prospect of paying double the price is making potential buyers look elsewhere. Investors, already nervous about rising interest rates and supply chain disruptions, have reacted negatively. Tesla's stock has seen sharp declines in the wake of Canada's decision, reflecting fears that other countries might follow suit with similar trade restrictions. There is growing speculation that Tesla could pull out of Canada altogether. If the tariffs remain in place, Tesla may find it financially unsustainable to continue selling in the Canadian market. While some analysts believe Tesla could try to negotiate a trade deal or seek an exemption, others argue that shifting production to Canada or Mexico could be the only long-term solution. If Tesla were to build a factory in Canada, it could sidestep the tariffs entirely. However, such a move would require years of investment and regulatory approvals, making it an unlikely short-term fix. Beyond Tesla, this tariff war is affecting the broader adoption of electric vehicles in North America. Canada has been a strong supporter of clean energy initiatives, offering subsidies and incentives for electric vehicle buyers. But with Tesla now priced out of reach for many, the country's EV transition could slow down. Competitors like Ford, General Motors, and Volkswagen are quickly stepping in to capture Tesla's lost market share, offering alternative EVs that remain tariff-free. This battle is far from over, and Tesla's future in Canada hangs in the balance. But what if Canada escalates further? Could it target other American exports? Canada's economic leverage. While the Tesla tariffs have grabbed headlines, Canada has far more economic leverage than just electric vehicles. As one of the largest suppliers of oil, electricity, and rare minerals to the United States, Canada holds powerful bargaining chips in this trade war. If the situation worsens, could Canada use these resources as a weapon? Canada is the largest foreign supplier of crude oil to the United States, accounting for over 60% of American imports. A disruption in oil exports could cause fuel prices in the United States to skyrocket, adding to inflationary pressures that are already straining American consumers. The same applies to electricity. Canada exports vast amounts of hydropower to northeastern states, and cutting off supply would lead to higher energy costs for millions of Americans. Beyond energy, Canada is a major producer of nickel, lithium, and rare earth metals, critical components for electric vehicle batteries and other high-tech industries. If Canada were to restrict exports of these materials, it could cripple Tesla and other American manufacturers that rely on them for production. This is not an empty threat. China has already used rare metal export bans as a geopolitical weapon, and Canada could follow suit. The possibility of a broader trade conflict is a growing concern for American businesses. Many industries, from agriculture to manufacturing, depend on Canadian imports. tariffs and supply chain disruptions would be devastating. Large companies have already begun lobbying Washington to ease trade tensions, fearing that retaliatory tariffs could lead to job losses, factory closures, and price hikes for American consumers. Donald Trump, however, remains defiant. His administration has doubled down on protectionist policies, arguing that tariffs will force businesses to move production back to the United States. But as tensions escalate, the real question is, who will benefit from this trade war? China, Europe, and the rest of the world. As North America's economic battle intensifies, other global players are quietly preparing to take advantage of the situation. If Tesla and other American automakers struggle under higher costs and supply chain disruptions, could China, Europe, and other competitors seize the opportunity to dominate the global EV market? China's electric vehicle manufacturers stand to gain the most. Companies like BYD, NIO, and XPeng have been aggressively expanding into global markets, and a weakened Tesla would give them a competitive edge. With lower production costs and strong government subsidies, Chinese EV makers could flood the Canadian market with affordable alternatives, potentially shifting the balance of power in the EV industry. Meanwhile, the European Union is closely watching Trump's protectionist policies. The European auto industry, including brands like Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz, has been expanding its electric vehicle production and could capitalize on Tesla's struggles in Canada. If trade relations between the United States and Canada deteriorate further, Europe could position itself as a more reliable trade partner for Canada, strengthening economic ties. Beyond automobiles, Canada may seek alternative trade partnerships to reduce its dependence on the United States. With growing uncertainty in North America, Canada could expand its economic ties with the European Union, Japan, South Korea, and other allies. While the United States remains Canada's largest trading partner, this shift could lead to a long-term realignment of global supply chains. As new trade alliances take shape, one question looms large. Could this escalating trade war push the United States into a full-blown recession? The big economic picture. The economic fallout of Trump's trade policies is becoming harder to ignore. As tariffs escalate, markets are reacting with increased volatility, and many analysts are warning that a recession could be on the horizon. The stock market's reaction to the trade war has been swift. Investors have dumped auto stocks, fearing that tariffs will drive up production costs and reduce consumer demand. Tesla, Ford, and General Motors have all seen billions of dollars wiped off their market value, and uncertainty in the broader economy is spreading. Inflation is another major concern. Higher prices on cars, imported goods, and raw materials are putting pressure on consumers. With supply chains strained and costs rising, the Federal Reserve may be forced to raise interest rates further, making borrowing more expensive for businesses and individuals. The risk of job losses and factory closures is also growing. If automakers shift production overseas to avoid tariffs, American workers could face mass layoffs. The manufacturing sector, which Trump has long championed, is now caught in an economic storm of his own making. With pressure mounting from business leaders, lawmakers, and the public, Trump faces a difficult choice. Will he back down, or will he escalate further? Canada's trade strategy. A new economic alliance? Canada has already taken significant steps toward diversifying its trade portfolio. The Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement with the European Union, which took effect in 2017, eliminated tariffs on the majority of goods traded between Canada and Europe. This agreement allows Canadian businesses to expand into European markets, reducing their dependence on the United States. Additionally, Canada is part of the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, a trade bloc that includes major economies like Japan and Australia. This deal opens new doors for Canadian exporters, particularly in the energy and technology sectors. Beyond formal agreements, there is a growing sentiment within Canada that economic reliance on the United States is a liability rather than an advantage. Business leaders are urging the government to strengthen ties with the European Union and expand trade with China, India, and Southeast Asia. While such a shift would take time, it could ultimately make Canada more resilient against economic shocks caused by U.S. policies. A major concern for the U.S. is whether Canada's move toward new trade partners will weaken American economic influence. If Canadian businesses shift focus to European and Asian markets, the demand for U.S. goods in Canada could shrink, affecting industries from agriculture to manufacturing. Moreover, if Canada reduces its dependence on the U.S. dollar for trade, it could be another step toward a global economic order that is less centered around American financial dominance. If Canada's economic realignment continues, the long-term consequences could be profound. The United States has historically counted on its neighbors for trade stability, but a Canada that is less dependent on U.S. markets could embolden other countries to challenge Washington's trade policies. The question remains, will the U.S. adjust its approach to keep Canada in its economic orbit? Or will it push its neighbor further into the arms of new allies? If Trump is willing to risk the unraveling of USMCA, what other bold trade moves could he be planning? The next phase of his economic strategy could escalate tensions even further. Trump's next move. How far will the tariff war go? Trump has never been afraid to use tariffs as a political and economic weapon. While his latest actions have targeted Canada, Mexico, and China, the bigger question is, will he extend tariffs to Europe, Japan, or even key allies like South Korea? The risk of further U.S. economic isolation is growing. If Trump imposes additional tariffs on imports from Europe or Asia, it could provoke countermeasures that damage American businesses. The European Union has already warned that it will retaliate if the U.S. targets its automobile industry, and Japan has expressed concerns about potential tariffs on electronics and other exports. Meanwhile, China is watching closely, looking for opportunities to exploit the weaknesses in the U.S. trade war. Beijing has strengthened its relationships with Canada and Mexico, and it is actively working to position itself as a more stable trade partner than the U.S. If Trump continues to escalate tariffs, China could step in and replace the U.S. as the primary trade partner for countries that were once firmly within Washington's sphere of influence. As Trump prepares for the 2028 election, his trade policies will likely remain a central issue. His base supports his America First approach, but economic analysts warn that prolonged trade wars could lead to higher prices, inflation, and job losses in key industries. Will Trump listen to these concerns? Or will he push forward with an even more aggressive trade agenda? With all these economic shifts, one question remains. Could this be the beginning of the end for U.S. dominance in global trade? The new global trade order. For most of the 20th and early 21st century, the United States was the undisputed leader of global trade. But as Trump's protectionist policies continue to push key allies away, the balance of economic power is shifting. If Canada and Mexico succeed in diversifying their trade, and if Europe and Asia respond to U.S. tariffs with retaliatory measures, the global economy could enter a new era where American influence is significantly reduced. Countries that once depended on U.S. markets may look elsewhere, forging alliances that bypass Washington entirely. The rise of new trade alliances poses the biggest threat to U.S. economic dominance in decades. The European Union, China, and emerging economies in the Indo-Pacific are increasingly working together, creating an economic environment where the U.S. is no longer the central player. If these trends continue, the global financial system could move away from its reliance on the U.S. dollar, further weakening American economic power. For now, the fate of U.S. trade dominance remains uncertain. Will Trump double down on tariffs and risk further economic fragmentation? Or will the backlash from American businesses and global partners force him to reconsider his approach? One thing is clear. The next few years will determine whether America retains its position as the world's economic leader, or if a new global trade order emerges in its place. So will the U.S. maintain its grip on global trade, or is this the beginning of a new economic era? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more updates, and stay tuned as this historic trade battle unfolds. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.